Hey everyone, I'm Uri Haramati, and I'm the CEO and founder of Torii, the SaaS management platform. And I'm here to talk to you about how the hyper adoption of SaaS revolutionized the IT role. And SaaS revolutionized how we provide solutions and applications to our end users. It's a 20 years model, but the huge acceleration started in the last decade with the evolution of the subscription economy and the evolution of software and the way we build software. We've seen the rise of DevOps tools and microservices that enabled the building of software and made it much easier than before and much faster. So we see more and more tools being introduced. Today we have thousands of tools out there, and the number is just increasing and accelerating. Every company today is using SaaS tools, if they know it or not. SaaS, business application, the evolution of software in the last few years had an amazing contribution on companies and delivering huge value and huge revenue growth, efficiency and velocity in every aspect of the business and every department. Industry giants as Salesforce, regular report, 25% growth. Even perpetual software behemoths like Microsoft or Adobe and more transition to SaaS models and are seeing more and more benefits out of it. Here on the left side of the screen, you can see some interesting data. This comes from Torii's customers in aggregate, and it shows the number of applications being introduced to a company on a single month. This is net new software application being used every single month in a single company. And the interesting part is you can see before the pandemic, a company was using 14 new applications every single month. And you can clearly see the spike around March 2022, when everyone rushed into finding new solution when they went remote, and the number spiked to about 30 new apps a month during these months. Later on, there was a decrease and it stabilized around 18 new applications every single month, and this is kind of the new normal. These organizations that are actively monitoring their SaaS usage using Torii, and they are discovering these applications. Because of this speed of adoption, it is widening the gap between the reality and the perception of how many applications are being used in the company. In general, you can see that on average, the number of applications being used in the company is 3 times higher than the number of applications that IT thinks that are being used before starting to monitor that. And this number can rise up to 6x, depending on the organization. And the other part of it is that we are finding, and when speaking to the IT, is the majority of the apps are being purchased, approved, managed, and sometimes provisioned outside of the IT by the marketing team, sales team, engineering, or even finance. And we see tools for every single department today. At this rate, it creates an exponential growth and continues to divide between the perception and reality. Historically, IT knew everything in the environment. Now, they know they don't know everything. And this is mainly due to the ease of deployment of SaaS, the ease of purchasing SaaS, and the implementation. This creates around 35% of waste of licenses and spend. It is not far from shelfware we experience in the perpetual type of software. But today there are 2 main differences. First, it is harder to control and manage as it is not on-premise. And the second part is that absolute spend on SaaS and software is increasing. We are spending more and more on these tools, and these numbers keep on increasing, and software being introduced to more and more departments and more parts of our lives in the company. And the other part is SaaS opened up more doors to risk. SaaS and software in general is integrated much deeper into our processes, data, and information than before. It is much integrated and connected. And today, in a couple of clicks, everyone can transfer data from Salesforce to almost any other tool and let one software create impact and automate other tools. Sensitive data is now flowing much faster, and it's much harder to understand the flow of data and visualize the the architecture or control it. Interesting data shows that 99% of cloud breaches caused by preventable configuration or user errors. And last, the amount of time we're spending on managing all these tools is just increasing and increasing. The time being spent on systems per each employee is increasing. Onboarding, offboarding, configurations, training, optimization, support, and the list goes on and on. And in the last few years, SaaS fundamentally transformed the role of IT. And it is in a very interesting point in time. As technology is becoming such a significant part of every company and every size and every industry, IT is in a position to be the main accelerator of the company and every single goal it has. IT has the opportunity more than ever to be the strategic partner and technology leader for every single department. But it is hard. With the amount of tools we have today and the change and in dynamic of the adoption, purchasing, and management of SaaS applications, IT is no longer the only decision maker when it comes to software. Not always the budget owner, and certainly can be the expert of all these different tools we have in the company today. That also related to the fact that SaaS companies are taking more and more of the approach of bottom-up approach or product-led growth. And the end user is fully educated before we even buy the software. And the marketing efforts of the SaaS vendors are dedicated to that end user. Still, IT is the strategic partner and is tasked with being in control of what we are buying, what tools we have, how applications are being used, what ROI from these different systems we get, and what other options we are considering. And IT role is still governing technology. And IT can be the enabler of system and drive innovation. IT is still on the hook for technology risk and compliance. And this job is much, much harder than before. Once again, you need visibility and needs the ability to take immediate actions on your findings. Shadow IT can no longer be ignored. But it also has a positive side into it. People adopting new tools and finding new solutions means they want to become more efficient in the day-to-day jobs, and they want to do a better job. So there's a new balance to mention in the tension between control and autonomy. And that goes back to the challenges of SaaS is more integrated and tightly integrated than before, and have easier access to sensitive data. In a way, we wanted to have that because we have more tools today that can take larger amount of data and get the insights for us, the recommendations for us. And it is part of the onboarding of almost every single tool today to connect to different applications. And we like it because it makes our life easier, but it's obviously make our life more complicated in governance and vulnerability. Strategy and risk are some of the key drivers of companies to adopt SaaS management tools. But for many, the main driver is still spend. Cutting expenses, optimizing spend, and streamline operations that creates waste today. The first part is having the data take the data-driven decisions. When you're not able to see unused licenses in a single place, automation and deprovisioning, unused licenses, it's another. Comparing the usage of similar application and consolidation and rationalization of apps, that's another part is becoming harder and harder. And that's where SaaS management comes in. Managing renewals, it's a huge place of optimization on spend. In a more distributed environment, the readiness for renewals, it's not as efficient as it was before. Like the rest, IT is facing the challenge of either being reactive to these processes and try to control everything, or streamlining the process with the different stakeholders to take quicker decisions in the right time with the right data. And the last part is operations. the number of tasks we are taking, the number of processes we are facing is just increasing. And there's no way of coping with it without automating these entire processes of operations of managing SaaS. Now let's look at the number of 35% waste. Where does it come from? So first, we don't know what is purchased. We don't know what tools are being used. Many companies approve a certain level of spend in a department level, and we see more and more employees being reimbursed for SaaS tools. The next part is, after you know what tools exist in the company, the other question will be how much these tools are being used. Are they being used to the fullest, or are they delivering value? And in a democratized environment of today, you can just go to a team and remove an app because they are not using it. So there's the lack of awareness of what systems are being used in the company by the employees themselves. When a single team is using a certain tool, another team is maybe using the same tool or a different tool to solve the same problem without knowing about each other. Sometimes the free tools will create waste. We have seen it more and more than when a shadow IT free tool is gaining popularity, it's actually replacing a paid tool without anyone knowing about it, and from a rationalization perspective. Governance is harder than before. When you are missing the information and you don't have the data, managing the lifecycle of applications is harder than before. Deciding on which licensing to allocate and to whom is harder than before. You have so many rules today, so many profiles and specific roles. And deciding the purpose of the tools is becoming harder. The decentralized environment and the fact that the information of every single application exists within the tool, its specific tool itself, makes it harder. With the perpetual tools in the past, you would have the data, and it was easier to see and manage. Today, the complexity of tools increased, and the variety of tools increased. And time is also wasted. Our studies show that the overhead of managing SaaS is 120 minutes per employee per year. And one-time full employee is dedicated to SaaS per 1,000 employees. Now, this is not really scalable when companies are growing or the stack is growing and the pace is growing today. And the reason those numbers have come up, it is because the way we provision applications, changed. How it used to be is somewhat like that. You assign a laptop, you create their Windows login and email, and then you create some standard build for them, and then they get some specific role-based access apps, and that's it. Today, this process is different. Today, it looks more like that. Yes, you assign a laptop, and yes, you create some identity and deploy some standard applications. But today, roles are much more specialized, and the roles-based access is much more complicated than before. The speed the stack is changing is not like it used to be. So the standard applications used today in the company is not the same as the standard application we're going to use next month, and not the same that we used last month. Yes, some systems stay with us for a longer period, right? Our Office 365 or our Slack and Salesforce and Adobe, but the long tail is always changing. And some of the long tail apps are becoming critical to certain parts of the company in no time. But there is a better way of doing that. And that's really where SaaS management comes in. By both having the right understanding of the current stack and information, and automating the offboarding and onboarding of such tools. Now let's talk about risk exposure. This is where SaaS management becomes SaaS governance. There are three sources of risk when it comes to usage of SaaS applications. So the first will be identity. who is using the apps, what they are being used for, should they have access, are they still working with the company, right? But the other one is data security. Is the data backed up? What happens if we delete a user? Who is the owner, the admin, specific other roles, and what kind of access do they have? And what it's connected to. This is a huge blind spot that we see companies are always surprised from. We love connecting application using OAuth protocol in a click, and it's super easy and fast and efficient. But that's the risk about it. Companies are always surprised when they see they have 300 applications connected to the G Suite environment, some with access to Google Analytics and some with access to the employee emails. Companies are surprised when they see they have 150 applications connected to their Slack environment and see someone connected some poll app for asking what to eat on lunch, and that tool has access to the entire Slack messages of the team. It is harder to understand the risk about it. And obviously all the operational risk around managing these tools. So this is what SaaS management should do for you, and this is what how you should approach the current situation. You need the best discovery. You need to discover everything about who's using the apps, how they're being used, how much you're paying for them, and what to optimize. Then you need to take actions directly from within the tool, instead of going to all these hundreds of tools and then create automation needed for that. So this is the three things to do to manage your SaaS stack. We talked about tracking the entire stack, identify key areas of overlap and wastage, and analyze the potential areas of data protection and risk. And thank you for being here with us today. I'm Uri Aramati, the CEO and founder of Torii, and this is how the IT role changed in the hyper-growth era of SaaS. Thank you.